Howdy. As he said, I'm Greg Michaud. My wife Patty and I live on a little acreage in LaPorte where we operate the old feed store, a little store where we sell animal feeds, pet food. But we also operate as an intensive mini farm where we grow most of our own food. We also sell our whatever excess organic produce that we have. We raise and sell poultry. So we've become a pretty good source for folks for chickens because we'll raise chicks to laying age till they're old enough to produce, or you can buy them anytime in between. So if you're looking for chickens, come out and see us. We've actually got a really good deal right now. This is my crass commercial plug. We have a bunch of chickens we'll sell really cheap right now. As I said, we raise and sell chickens. We keep a large flock so that we can sell our own eggs, and we can provide our own both eggs and meat. Sampling of some eggs over there, nice pretty colors for everybody to see. It's fun to see green eggs, you know, it brings Dr. Zeus to mind. I will not eat them, Sam, I am. It's specific to the breed of chicken. A breed of chicken called Araucana or Americana lays greenish and bluish colored eggs. The brown eggs come from other breeds. Some breeds lay white eggs, some lay cream colored eggs. Just depends on the breed. We have a lot of ground to cover. I really want to try to just cover the basics of what you need to keep chickens. We could talk about a lot of stuff and we'll try to cover it if we can. But the important thing for you folks is to just demystify keeping chickens. Who all here already have hens? Got a few, not many. It's really not difficult owning hens. It's a bit of a commitment because they are livestock. They do require attention. They require maintenance on a daily basis. But it only averages a few minutes a day if you handle things correctly. So you really don't have a big commitment in it, and the benefits certainly outweigh that. The best reason to have your own chickens is that you can produce the best quality eggs that you can find anywhere. And it's easy for you to produce eggs that are better quality than those grown that are sold in the grocery stores, even those $5 a dozen eggs that you can get at like Whole Foods. The reason that yours can be better is because commercial egg producers simply cannot turn their chickens loose on pasture and let them eat fresh greens. They have to have them in confinement the way they do in order to produce enough eggs to be able to supply a grocery store. They've got to have a confinement system. You can have chickens that are allowed access to fresh greens. That changes the nutritional profile of an egg significantly. When the animal can get what's out in greens, well, Mother Earth News a number of years ago did their own research on it. They took eggs from chickens that are on farms where the chickens are pastured, meaning they're turned loose onto green grass to forage for themselves at least part of the day. And they analyzed those eggs for their nutritional content compared to standard grocery store eggs, which those chickens are really fed a very simple soy protein and corn diet. They really don't get much variety, and that's why those eggs are so bland and tasteless. If you've never had a farm fresh egg, you need to try one. It'll change your mind. In fact, I don't even want to eat grocery store eggs anymore. They are so poor. Anyway, the Mother Earth News article, their average, what they found on average from eggs from hens that are allowed to pasture is that they have a third less cholesterol, a fourth less saturated fat, 2/3 more vitamin A, 2 times more omega-3 fatty acids, 3 times more vitamin E, and 7 times more beta-carotene than grocery store eggs. You can produce eggs that good, and they're better than what you'll get in a grocery store. The eggs that they used for their good quality eggs came from private farms where you have to buy the eggs from the farm, because there are no farms that pasture chickens that can produce enough eggs to sell to a grocery store. It's just that simple. So that article's on the Mother Earth website. They've even done some more recent articles that are, again, showing the improved quality, the vitamin D content of those eggs. So that's a good reason to keep chickens. Other good reasons are you can feed them kitchen scraps, things that you might otherwise throw away or compost can become feed for the chickens and can improve those eggs again, because salad greens, they like and need meat scraps. Don't be fooled by claims that chickens can be vegetarian fed. Chickens are not vegetarians. They are omnivores, they're foragers, they need meat proteins. There are some essential amino acids that if a chicken doesn't get, they won't be healthy and they won't produce healthy eggs. And they won't continue to produce eggs for you very well. In nature, chickens will get their meat from bugs, little critters. You should see what they'll scarf up. They'll eat mice, little fish, crawdads, Bugs mostly. Bugs are very high protein. So they derive a lot of their meat proteins from things they would forage in nature. It's good for us to feed them meat scraps. Give them a steak bone that you've gnawed the meat off of. They'll peck it till there's not a scrap of meat left on it. I mean, they make good use of it. And so you're cycling nutrients because then you get from them protein back to you in the form of eggs and meat, and you get the compost from their litter, their manure, which you should garden. If you have eggs, you should garden because chicken manure is wonderful composted fertilizer. Makes really good high nitrogen fertilizer for your garden. So there are a lot of good things that go along with that. So when you keep chickens, what they need from you is that you simulate their natural needs. They need shelter at night, and in that shelter they need somewhere that feels to them like they're getting up in a tree, because in nature they'll get up in a tree for safety. So they need a roosting perch in that coop that puts them as high as the coop will permit them to get. In one of my barn spaces where we keep chickens, I thought I was doing real nice to them. I put 3 bars of 2x4, one down low, one in the middle, and one up about that high. Well, they found that the top of the wall had a little ledge on it, and the goofy things all were trying to sit up on that ledge on the very top of the wall because they want to get as high as they possibly can. So they need that. They need a roosting perch in a coop that's draft free. They can't be subjected to freezing wind. The biggest danger weather-wise that our chickens will endure in our climate are those cold freezing winds that happen during the nighttime. Those cold winds can freeze the thin tissues of their head, the wattles, the little things on their cheeks, and the comb, and they can get frostbite. So it's very important that they're never subjected to extreme freezing cold, especially wind. They can endure a lot of cold. They don't necessarily need supplemental heat. That's something a lot of folks do because they want to. If you want to supplement with some heat on the really cold nights, that's great. But they don't absolutely have to have it. They will survive without it. The one thing they do need is that their water is kept thawed. And that's the other thing we have to provide for them is a constant source of fresh, cool water. You can't make your chickens go without water for very long. They dehydrate. Chickens have a very fast metabolism. They burn through a lot of energy very quickly, and so they need to be able to sip water on a pretty regular, constant basis. And chickens won't drink water that's over 80 degrees. So if it's sitting somewhere where it's going to get really hot, they'll dehydrate rather than drink hot water. So they need cool water. And then in the winter, of course, they need thawed out water. Now, among the pieces of equipment that I brought, which I'll talk about at a point here, I did not bring a heater base. We have at our store, and you can buy from other places, this thing looks like an oil pan. It's just a galvanized metal pan that's upside down. Built into the underside of that is a low wattage heater on a thermostat that you set this on. Well, in this case, you'd set a waterer. This is a feeder, but either any of these waterers. And when it gets cold, the thing turns itself on and keeps the water thawed. When it warms back up, the thing shuts itself off again. They work really well. They're very reliable. A heater base is a nice thing to have, but it does mean you have to have electricity in your coop. So for some of us that live out in the boondocks out there, that can be a challenge. But it is important that they have water available all the time. The other thing they need all the time is a source of good, complete feed. Chickens, again, they have a very fast metabolism. They go through a lot of food. In nature, they forage constantly. They'll forage for hours, and then they'll take a nap or they'll go and lay eggs, but then they want to forage some more, and especially for the first few hours in the morning and the last few hours of the day, they want to eat. They need to keep moving that stuff through in order to keep their metabolism going and keep their gut charged. If they don't get that, they won't lay well. And if you want eggs, then you need to provide them the feed they need in order to keep their system pumping out eggs. In order to do that, that feed needs to have an average protein level of 16 to 18%. That's pretty high, actually, from a feed standpoint. This is what is commonly called hen scratch or scratch grains. It's a mixture of cracked corn, which is busted up corn kernels, wheat, and sorghum or milo. This is really just a treat for the chickens. This mixture runs somewhere in the 6 to 8% protein. It is not an adequate complete feed, and it does not contain some of those essential meat-based amino acids that are critical to a healthy chicken. So this is not something you want to feed on a regular basis. You do need to use a complete feed. This is the feed we use. It's pelleted feed. It comes from right here in Fort Collins from Ranchway Feeds, manufactured right here. The ingredients are sourced locally from farmers as close in as Ranchway can buy them. So it's good in that it's good for the local economy. It's also extremely fresh. We generally, when we get bags of feed from the mill, they're less than 2 or 3 days old. So it's good fresh stuff. All it is a mixture of the various grains like corn and soy and some alfalfa, and then a lot of the other vitamins and minerals and salts that are necessary to provide a complete diet for those chickens. It's then pelleted. Now, some folks prefer that the pellets are ground up more like this. This is called granulated feed, and all it is these ground up small. We only use this when we've got young chickens that we're transitioning off of the starter food, which is very finely ground. This is typical chick feed, where they've ground it up even smaller. And of course, chick feed is a much higher protein level because when they're growing, they need more protein even than that. But when they're transitioning from a finely ground feed to a more pelleted feed, we go through the granulated, but we prefer the pellets because this stuff's more powdery and they slop a certain amount of it onto the ground, and when they do that, they lose it. It gets in the dirt. With the pellets, they'll find them. So we have a lot less waste with a pelleted feed than we do with a granulated. The other kind of feed that's common out there that we don't have here as a sample is what you'll hear of called layer mash. And that's where they've simply taken the grain products, ground them up pretty darn fine, typically like this, and it's just ground up grains. They haven't been mixed with a little bit of a binding agent like molasses and then shoved through a pelleting mill. That's all the difference is. This has been extruded out of a pelleting mill. Mash has not. Mash is powdery. You lose a lot of it in the dirt. And if it's a layer mash, it needs to be sure to contain the necessary things they need, which include those vitamins, minerals, essential amino acids, and then the other thing that laying hens have got to have is calcium. They need about 5% calcium in their diet because their eggshells are made of calcium. And if you deplete their calcium supplies within their body, not only is it unhealthy for the hen, but they'll lay eggs without shells. Or at least you'll get eggs with such thin shells that they're constantly breaking and you'll have a lot of problem. One of the remedies to that is this stuff. This is broken up oyster and coral shell. It's almost 100% calcium. If you provide this for them, it's best to provide it free choice, meaning in a separate container. Like a lot of folks just take a tin can, like a coffee can, and just screw it to the wall of the coop and just keep some of this in it. So if they want it, they can get it. You don't want to force them to eat it. You don't want to overload their system with calcium. It's hard on their kidneys and liver. So you just want them to get enough oyster or coral shell so that their eggs stay nice and firm. So make it free choice. The other benefit this provides is it is a grit. Chickens have a little organ as part of their digestive tract. It's kind of a pre-stomach called a gizzard. In the gizzard, they grind the grain and food that they eat, especially the grains. They require gravel in that gizzard, little bits of broken up rock. You can buy it like this. This is purchased, it's busted up granite. But if you've got an outdoor yard and they can have access to the outdoors, generally they'll find enough on their own. If they don't, we recommend that you go visit a local creek bed or the river and get a bucket of just busted up sandy river stuff and then put it on the ground in your outdoor chicken run so that they can scratch for it and get it when they want it. They just need a little bit of grit in their gizzard in order for them to grind the grain, and then that way they get more out of it when they do digest it. Coral shell does provide a certain amount of a grit effect, so they will use that for grit. And that works nicely in the winter when the gravel kind of stuff isn't as available, like if the ground is frozen in their outdoor run. So we always, during the winter, allow them a mixture of both grit and oyster because sometimes outdoors just isn't real friendly to them. But again, they need 16 to 18% protein. You can buy, at least at Ranchway, their feeds come in both a 16% protein and a 20% protein. We use the 20% protein because we feed them a lot of other stuff. And we want that 20% because they're reducing their protein intake by eating other stuff. That way we're trying to keep that average up higher into that 16% range. We feed them a lot of greens. Grass clippings are great. Any kind of salad scraps. It's fun to pull, like I'll go over by our compost pile and pull the great big weeds that are growing this time of year, and I'll just take them and hang them on the fence where the chickens are, and they strip all the leaves off of them. Those greens are really good for them. There's a lot of phytonutrients and beta-carotenes and things that are not only healthy for them, it boosts their immune system, makes them more resistant to potential disease or otherwise, but it also comes back to us in that the eggs are a lot healthier for us. as the Mother Earth News article indicated. So we cut, in the coop, they need to be safe from freezing wind and inclement weather. They need a roosting perch up high. Then they need, and we'll come back and talk about the feeders, but they need a nesting box or two. Well, they need a nest per about every 5 chickens. So if you're in the city and you're going to have 6 hens, 2 nesting boxes is plenty. If figure about a box for every 5 hens, because you could have 10 nesting boxes and 10 chickens, and you'll find all 10 eggs in one box. The chickens have this thing about if somebody laid an egg there, then that's a good place to put eggs. Their natural inclination is to hide their eggs. They want to put their eggs somewhere where a predator can't find them. And so if they get loose in the yard, they'll lay their eggs under bushes. Or like out on our place, since it's we have barns and we have hay sheds, we find eggs on top of the haystack because they're looking for a safe place. Nesting box needs to be about 1 foot wide, about 1 foot deep, and about 1.5 feet tall, where the bottom 6 inches of that has a front on it, a lip, to hold straw in that box. Does that make sense to everybody? They need a deep layer of straw. One of the big mistakes we see people make a lot is that they only provide like a little strip of wood across the front of the nesting box. So it only holds a tiny little puddle of straw. Well, when those girls get in there, the first thing they do is try to arrange the nest. And so they're scratching and kicking and turning, and they'll scrape everything out because what they want to do is dig a bowl. In fact, what they get in my straw storage, because we sell bales of straw at the feed store, and they get up there and they just tear a hole in the bale until they've got this nice dish about 6 inches deep, and then they nestle their little butt down in there and put eggs in it. So they need a deep space. It really helps a lot, guys. When you can keep a good layer of straw in that nest, you'll have clean eggs. If you don't, it's shallow and there's a hard bottom, they're going to break the eggs, then it's sticky, it's nasty, it stinks, it gets messy, the eggs are filthy, and I mentioned you want the roosting perch up high. You absolutely want that higher than the nests. Keep the nests kind of low to the ground to simulate climbing under a bush. If the nest is the highest place in the room, they'll sleep in it. And you got to understand, the last 3 or 4 hours of their day is loading up their crop, which is their little storage bag where they pack a bunch of food in, and then they go and they sit down and they slowly digest it, which means they poop a lot at night. A lot. So if they sleep in the nest, you're going to have poop in the nest, you're going to have poopy eggs, and it's really no fun. But if you'll provide them that roosting bar up higher than the nests, then that's where they'll want to sleep. If you get a hen that's trying to sleep in the nest, put something to stop her. Don't close the nest at night and reopen it in the morning. Once you break the bad habit, generally they won't come back to it. So they need that nesting box, and it needs to be situated so that it feels to them like a safe place. That way they can hide their eggs in it. That's what they're trying to do. So that's the other need to meet. Then, as far as the floor of the coop, you can do whatever you want, but what we've found really works well is to provide about a foot deep layer of litter. Build the coop so that there's a basin in the bottom of that coop that's going to hold stuff so that the stuff can't just fall out the doorway. You want a deep layer. Wood shavings work really good, but I'll tell you what, the best thing we've got around here are dry tree leaves because they're cheap and they work well. They don't rot quickly. They absorb a lot of moisture, and what you want that litter to do is when they poop in it, you want the manure's moisture to soak into that litter so that it dries out. And what you'll find is that you can keep the floor of the coop pretty darn dry and pretty darn smell-free. I mean, it's going to stink some, but when that manure dries, then it doesn't smell bad. If you've got constant puddles of wet manure laying around, like on a hard surface floor, they're going to walk in it, they're going to track it into the nesting box. They walk on the eggs when they get in the nest, so they're going to walk on the eggs and get them all poopy. If you've got this really good layer of dry litter, high carbon material, does everybody know about composting? When you compost, you want to mix high carbon stuff with stuff that's got a high nitrogen content. Dry leaves don't compost well on their own because they lack nitrogen. That makes them good litter. Same with wood shavings, same with straw. It's stuff that does not rot easily. It's got a high carbon content. You're going to, that way, then the manure, like I said, it dries out in it. You'll get a certain amount of a composting effect going on in the litter, and chickens insist on digging. They constantly are scratching. They'll always be searching through that stuff and scratching in it, which means they mix it for you. So if you give them a deep layer of stuff to work in, they'll do a good job of keeping their own wastes stirred into that litter. We even toss some of this hen scratch around in the coop on the floor to induce them to search for it, because then they turn the litter more. And we're constantly adding litter to it, like tree leaves. I save lots of tree leaves that we collect in the fall so that I've got a supply of them to use through the year. And then we throw chunks of hay in for them to dig through and get the leaves out of it. If I rake an area of the yard, I've got like a corner where the debris has blown into. It's got straw and leaves and hay. I clean that all up, put it in the coop. It's usually got a lot of bugs in it, and the chickens love it because they like bugs. So, pill bugs and earwigs and stuff that are in that swept up debris makes a nice treat for the chickens, and it adds a fresh layer of dry litter to the coop, to the bedding, so that then they can mix that in with the other stuff. That works really well, folks. If you don't have a high density coop, you can get by for a whole year without having to change that, to where it can work really well for you to only refresh that bedding layer in the coop in the fall when tree leaves are abundant. And you can take everything you took out, put it on the garden, get it good and wet, let it mellow over the winter, or even turn it into the soil, and you've got really good compost. Or you could just pile it and compost it. But the fall is a really good time to do that. So that's how I like to see the inside of a coop done. I don't like high maintenance situations. I don't want to have to go in and be shoveling out poop, every 3 or 4 weeks. We have a little book that we sell and we use that it's a great little guideline, but they even teach the practice that was common, where under the roosting perch where they sleep, they would put a special pit in the floor, a droppings pit, that they would then go in and clean out regularly. Well, it's really not necessary. If you use a deep layer of bedding, it's not necessary. It's a lot more work. And there have been some more recent findings about that. Since when the chicken poop in that bunch of dry stuff does set up a little bit of composting action, it actually generates some funguses that provide natural antibiotics. It actually is healthier for the chickens. It's been shown by research that baby chicks do better and are healthier if they're put on old chicken litter than being put on fresh, clean shavings. And it has to do with the natural antibiotics that are found in the composted material in that floor. Another good thing it does is during the winter months, that floor, because it's composting a little in there, it generates a little bit of heat. And the chickens like that. It's good for them. It helps keep the coop warm. Sometimes you'll find the girls, if they're cold, they'll go and dig a little dish in it and just nestle down in it and just sit in it because it feels good. They sense that natural heat that's coming out of the composting of the litter. As far as indoor space, I would recommend no less than 2 square feet per bird indoors. That's still pretty darn tight. But keep in mind, your chickens don't want to live in the coop. They want to live outdoors during the day. The only time they really want to be in the coop is at night, or sometimes if they're trying to escape the sun or rest or whatever. But the bulk of their time they need to spend outdoors. The only time they're going to be in the coop all day long is during really bad storms. They don't like going out in the snow. It's really no fun. In fact, they don't like walking on snow. So you need to provide them an outdoor yard, a chicken run, where they can go out and spend their day digging in the dirt. Chickens like to dig a little hole in dry dirt, and you'll see them raking dust all over themselves, under their wings and into their feathers. They'll get themselves totally filthy with dust. And then they'll get up and they'll shake off, and they remind me of the little character Pigpen from the Peanuts cartoons with a little cloud of dust around him. You'll see chickens like that. They've just got this cloud of dust around them. But it's a natural method of delousing themselves, of dealing with mites, ticks, fleas, anything like that. That dust can suffocate those bugs. And then the chickens will go and they'll park on a perch and they'll preen and they'll clean that stuff out. And they've got an oil gland that they'll get some oil on their beak and they'll re-oil their feathers. And they'll come out looking just slick and clean and pretty after they've gone out and taken a dirt bath. But they like to take dirt baths, and it's part of their instinctual behavior. So it's something we need to provide for them, to let them do. So they need room outdoors to do that. In an outdoor run, I wouldn't give them less than about 5 square feet per bird if you can accomplish it, because they need space. And you're going to find that chickens will set up a pecking order. Some of them are going to be mean to other ones. There's a dominant mama and then it kind of goes downhill from there. And the ones on the low end of the pecking order need somewhere to retreat to. So the more space they've got, the more variety of options, the better they can go get away from mama when she's being a biatch and picking on them. Because sometimes it can get really nasty. Outdoors, yeah. The indoors can be fairly tight because, again, the only time they're going to be stuck in there is during blizzard days, basically. The rest of the time, they'll spend the bulk of their day outdoors.
I have a question about the flooring. I had straw in my coop.
That works.
Well, it does, but I got a lot of mice, and so I switched over to shavings, wood shavings.
And that'll help.
It doesn't seem thick enough. I don't know. What, do you have any advice?
You need a lot of wood shavings to make it work.
Okay, what advice do you have to keep the mice down?
First of all, is your feeder a hanging feeder? Is the feed on the floor? That's your biggest problem right there. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. So they need that outdoor space. They need to escape from the sun. They'll want to go out, and you'll see them sunbathe, and they'll stretch out and they stick a leg out and they enjoy sunning themselves. But then when it's hot and they need to get away, they need a good place to get out of the sun. And sometimes the interior of a coop can be very hot. So your coop during the summer months also needs to be well ventilated. You don't want to have them get heat stroke, or at least stress them. Basically, anytime you contribute to their stress levels, whether it's overheated or cold or lack of water or lack of adequate food or the right kind of food, you're going to reduce their productivity. You're also going to compromise their immune system and make them way more vulnerable to potential disease. It's exactly the same with us. All those things apply to us too, you know. So with the outdoor space, it also needs to be predator resistant. The coop itself needs to be absolutely predator proof. Most of the predators that are going to threaten your chickens hunt at night. Most of them. Now, foxes sometimes will take them during the day, but most of the time they're active at night. Coyotes are at night. Raccoons, which may be your very worst enemy, are at night. So the coop needs to be something they cannot tunnel under and into, or break through, or get into. Now, bears are known to tear a chicken coop down, and you almost can't prevent them. If a bear wants in, generally they may just get in. We know a lot of folks out west here, up Bellevue, LaPorte, Livermore area, that have had really sturdy coops that when a bear decided he wanted the chickens, he just slashed it to pieces. So, but in the city, at least, that's not a big issue. But the raccoons and the foxes are absolutely an issue in the city. You'll have as much or more trouble with them as we do out in the country, because out in the country, they have other food sources. But nighttime, those critters have got all night to work at getting in. So you've got to take care of your hens. Now, it's also good to turn the hens loose into a larger space, like outside their little chicken run. We like to turn them loose in the afternoon and let them forage the whole grounds. They go and hunt and find new, fresh greens for themselves and whatever. And they clean up messes. So like, for instance, if I ever am going to move some junk around where I've had pallets sitting on the ground for a time, you know how when you pick those up, there are bugs there? I always make sure the chickens are loose when I move that stuff, because then they move right in there and clean up on the bugs and stuff. And it's a great opportunity for them, and it cleans up a lot of bugs. But it's good to let them run. When you do, they will come home. Chickens are creatures of habit, and they'll come back to the coop to roost at sunset. So they put themselves to bed. All you need to do then is close the coop so that they're safe from the predators. But you can turn them loose. You just need to make sure they're safe and that there's nothing they're going to get into that you don't want them destroying. If you have an in-city lot and you've got a nice manicured landscaped backyard and you turn chickens loose in it, they're going to destroy it. Trust me. Eventually, whatever space they have constant access to, they will turn into a moonscape. They'll strip it bare. Even the roots of what weeds used to be growing there will get plucked out of the ground. So the main chicken yard is going to just be an empty clay moonscape. And that's why it's nice to turn them loose for a period of time into fresher ground, or move them around in some kind of an enclosure. But the main point is that they will scratch and tear and dig. If they find like mulch coverings around plants, like you've got a mulched flower bed, they'll tear the mulch out because it's got bugs under it. And because usually there are earthworms near the surface under mulch, and they love earthworms. And earthworms, by the way, are really, really good for chickens. They are a really good source of some of those essential meat proteins and amino acids that chickens need to get. Some of us locally that are kind of chicken folks, are trying to figure out a good way to do large-scale chicken farming, or I mean worm farming, vermiculture, specifically to provide our chickens worms during the winter months.
Can you release chickens into a garden then, or are they going to just tear it up?
They'll tear it up. So don't do it until late in the year, like when you're done with it. Or the way I do is I have a mobile coop called a chicken tractor that I put some hens in, and they're cultivators. That's why we call it a tractor, because let's say we've harvested all the salad or spinach or whatever it is. Put this coop, it's basically 4 feet by 8 feet, and put those hens in it, and they just tear that ground up. They eat the remaining vegetables, they eat weed seeds, bugs, and they just tear it up because they churn it, they dig in it, and they leave it all brown and cultivated really nicely. And so then you scoot it to the next section and let them work that ground. So chicken tractors work. But at the end of the year, you can let them clean it up. Yeah. And during the middle of the year, take any of the scraps that you've got and weeds that you pull and stuff like that, and let them eat it. They like a huge variety of stuff. They'll eat a lot of vegetables. Even those big squashes that get too big, split them in half, lay it on the ground open side up. They'll strip it down to the rind, and if the rind is very soft, they'll eat the rind. So you can, probably anything that's poisonous to livestock, like nightshade, probably ought to be avoided. I never put nightshade in there. I don't know if they can handle it or not, but I'm not going to take a chance. I only know of a few other things that are maybe toxic, but they're so uncommon that one thing that they say, don't feed them avocado. I don't know why. And don't feed them green potatoes. If you have a potato that's been exposed to light and has turned green, you're not supposed to eat it. Don't ever eat potato that's turned green because it contains a substance called solanine and it's toxic. So we shouldn't eat it, and neither should the chickens. Beyond that, I don't know, if you've got some exotic kind of plants that might be toxic, but yeah, I just don't know. That's not real common around here. So the only one I know of in my yard that's questionable is nightshade. And even that, I don't know if it's a problem to them. I just don't know.
What about wintertime dry plant material?
That's a good question. We like alfalfa hay, because you can take a chunk of a bale, a flake, how hay bales kind of flake apart. Give them a flake of alfalfa right in the middle of the coop, and they'll shred it to get those little alfalfa leaves out of it. Alfalfa leaves are really good. They're high protein, they're high calcium, they're high beta carotenes, lots of good food in that alfalfa. So it's a...
Dry weeds that grow, if you feed them that, will they eat that?
They'll pick what they want, and what they don't becomes bedding.
True.
So if we mow a weed patch, I just put the mowings in there and let them pick what they want. Yes?
You said earlier that they like to eat meat. Is that what you
They need to eat meat, yes.
So just
Well,
ham or bacon?
Well, bones, typically, yeah, they'll like those. But you know how when you have a steak bone and you chew as much meat off of it as you can? Give them the bone. Let them peck at it. They'll peck it totally clean. It's okay to feed them chicken scraps, you guys. It's not cannibalistic of a chicken to eat chicken. That's a natural thing for them. It's not a violation of nature like it is to feed chicken meat to cows, which they do. It's okay. If a chicken were to die in the coop and you left it there long enough, they will consume it. In fact, back in the old days, it was a common practice among farmers during the winter months when their chickens weren't getting bugs, that if they got their hands on a rat or a rabbit or some other vermin, they'd slash it open and put it in the chicken yard and let the chickens eat it as a source of meat proteins, because during the winter they don't get the bugs. Meat scraps from the kitchen are great. Even a little bit of grease is okay, and when we've got some like drippings and grease that we don't want to use, I'll take some of the feed and just put it in it and let it soak it up and let them have that. You don't want them to get too much fat at one time, because a high fat diet can screw up their eggs in that it causes them to lay jumbo eggs. For some reason, a high fat diet will cause them to lay these really large eggs that are real watery inside, and it's hard on the chicken. We know some folks who think they're being purists. They're afraid that this pelleted feed, they think that it's got poison in it, as if the manufacturer is going to deliberately put poison. Well, yeah, it is made from grain feedstocks that probably have, or that there were chemicals used in the raising of that grain. There may be some measurable residue. I don't know. We're kind of stuck with it, Our system really doesn't allow us good, perfectly clean organic food. We're all working on it. It's getting better. As the demand grows, the supply will grow. But for now, this doesn't contain poisons, but they think that this is somehow contaminated, so they only feed grains. And then they come and complain to us because their chickens started laying these huge eggs, and then one day they came out and found that she had turned inside out. It's called a prolapsed uterus. And it's where the egg was so big that it just carried their insides right out with them. It's deadly to the chicken. So too high fat, too much grain, too high fat compared to protein is hard on chickens. And that's why you don't want to feed an all grain diet. It's not natural. Chickens would not eat all grains in nature. They'd eat mostly bugs. Mostly bugs and greens. So grain is kind of an odd compromise. You know, in nature, those chickens wouldn't find a lot of grain seed available except when the grasses are seeding out, which only happens during kind of certain portions of the season. So an all grain diet is really not a natural diet. Yes, ma'am.
This is kind of an aside since we're talking about what
Can it wait till the Q&A?
Yeah, have you talked about recycle, whether you can use like runoff water?
Oh, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
You just use regular
Yeah.
water.
Chickens,
Capture it.
you watch them in the yard, they would rather drink puddle water than fresh water. And in fact, you know what? I think they can smell the weird junk in our city water, things like chlorine and stuff, because they always prefer dirty water that's been sitting and had the toxins dissipate, or that's got minerals in it. You know, puddle water, it's got some dirt in it, actually is minerals. We recently got our hands on a bunch of chickens that had been raised in confinement, where they were in a barn completely out of a natural environment. We brought them home, turned them loose in the yard. The first thing they did was ran around eating dirt. I think it was a mineral deficiency. I think they needed to get some stuff in their system and they had not been getting it. They ate dirt like crazy for a couple of days. So we've covered the coop, the yard, right? Back into, I'm going to talk about the equipment for feeding and watering. Start with waterers. This is a small metal waterer. The way these work is that you fill that basin while this is open, the little valve is closed. There's a little valvey thing here. When you put the lid on, it opens the valve. But what this does is it has a vacuum in there to where it can only get as much water as fills about a half-inch deep basin. There's about a half-inch of water in the little basin. And when that gets down a little bit, it allows some air in, which allows some water back out. So it's totally self-regulating unless you break a hole in it or something up here. These work nice. This is the smallest. This is a 2-gallon. These also come in 3 and 5 and 8-gallon versions. That's a metal one. Metal ones are nice because they work well on a heater base, although you can put this kind on some heater bases. This is just a plastic one. It has an outlet here. That same thing, vacuum. It's sealed at the top. You fill it. In fact, they provide a little lid if you want. You can screw onto the opening while you fill it up. I just put my finger over the hole. Fill it up, screw the lid on that, seals it, then it maintains a little basin of water in there. The advantage to these over a pan of water is that they will poop in everything, and they'll walk in everything, and they'll spill pans. They can't really poop in this because they can only get their head up to it. It's extremely rare you'll find a chicken turn her butt around and poop in the water. So it's nice to have that narrow little thing. It's also good to have a shallow puddle because that's what they want to drink out of. If you give them a deep pan of water, you can drown a chicken in it. A baby chick can drown in 1 inch of water. So deep pans of water can be a liability, and they're going to get it filthy, and that's not healthy for them to have water that's got their own manure in it. This is a tricky thing. We're using these out there where this is hooked to a constant pressurized water supply. It's got this thing moves like this to where when the bowl gets full, it shuts itself off. If you take the water out, it turns on and refills itself. So it's constantly regulating. It's handy when you've got a large flock that's going through a lot of water. Otherwise, these, you saw, the small ones work well in a small coop. You'll fill it maybe once a day or every other or third day, depending on how much water they're going through. So those are some waterers. This is the giant version of the automatic. Here's a small version of the automatic. But again, these also come in bigger versions. But for city folks, smaller flocks, it's really not necessary. It's kind of overkill. These are typical feeders. Here's a little dinky one. We generally only use this for chicks, or like if we have a hen that's in a hospital pen where we've isolated her because something's wrong, because it doesn't hold very much feed. This is a big version. They make a smaller plastic version that only holds 11 pounds, but I was out of them at the store. I'd have brought one to show you. But this one's plastic. The way they work is you fill the thing up. It just kind of provides a bowl of feed that the chickens can get at as they want. The metal one, same idea. It just hangs. And now the hanging issue. These feeders are intended to be hung, not set on blocks. Oh, back to the waterer. Put the water up on a block, or on, like I use cinder blocks, so that it's chest high on the bird. That way they can drink out of it without chafing their neck feathers, but it's up high enough that when they're kicking and scratching in the litter, because they're always doing that, that they don't kick a whole lot into the water, because occasionally they'll kick junk in the water. Same goes with the feed. Hang the feeder so that it's at chest height on the bird. You know, you see bungee cords along the road, the rubber kind that have busted or are laying there? Pick one up. Get that really handy S-hook off the end of the bungee. They're wonderful. Now, if you use a chain to hang your feeder, then you can adjust the height of the feeder depending on how much litter is underneath. Like if I keep adding stuff to the coop, it gets deeper and deeper, so I keep raising the feeder. Or if I put a bunch of young chicks, young hens, and they're small, and this needs to be down lower, I can move it down. The hook is nice. I like this big hook because it allows this piece to be used. Now, what this is about is that ledge is adequate for a chicken to sit on, and she will. In fact, they may want to sleep up there, which means they're gonna poop in the food. So you want to not let them sit on their feeder, and that's what this thing does, which you could make this out of a tin pie pan. I mean, it's the same idea as the things you use to keep squirrels out of your bird feeders. But that big S-hook holds it really nicely. If she tries to get up there, it dumps her. And they quickly learn that it's just not available, and they won't even try anymore, and you'll never have a problem again. But they do kind of have to be trained to stay off of the feeders. Now, the advantage to the hanging feeder is that mice cannot get into the feed. Mice are active at night. Chickens are asleep at night. If chickens see a mouse, they'll chase it down. Most chickens will gobble them down. They'll eat them, or they'll fight over it. But that's one of the main reasons people have mice in their coops, is that they put the feed down on the floor where the mice can just chow down all night long. So keep the feed up. That's probably the best and most important thing. And then if you can get the mouse problem under control, you can pretty much keep it from happening. The idea with mice is eliminate harborage, the things that harbor them. Try to prevent them from having opportunities. The other one that I found is that if mice can get down under the edges of the coop, down in the litter, and nest down deep, that's a problem. So you try to keep the borders of the coop so that, you know, because I'm working in old barns out there, these 100-year-old barns that they're ratty and they're messy, so they take some dealing with to keep that kind of thing from happening. If you build a coop, you can build it fairly tight. You should never really have a mouse problem. But the main point is make it so the mice can't get at the food. That's why hanging feeders work good. Also, because it's up chest high on the bird, they don't tend to kick near as much junk into it. Once in a while, I let the feeder get good and empty, and then I take it and shake it out and give it a scrubbing. Same with the waterers. I'll periodically just give them a good scrub down with fresh water, make them good and clean, so that, you know, you try to keep things sanitized. Some of the books will tell you that you should sanitize your entire coop on a regular basis. I'm not sure it's necessary unless you're having some kind of problem. And you know, speaking of that, there really aren't a lot of chicken health issues that we have around here. Once in a while I hear of people that'll have chickens that get some kind of a congestion problem, like a cold, but they usually recover. It's real rare. The only thing I hear of on a fairly regular basis is chickens getting cancer. What's really weird about it is that it's from the people who are the most holistically minded and are really hell-bent about feeding their chickens the most organic, proper, you know, and their chickens are dying of cancer. And I don't know what the quandary is there, but it really is a weird thing to me. Speaking of organic feed, Ranchway Feeds is working on building an organic mill. We are going to get to have certified organic chicken feed at some point in the future. That's, to me, really exciting because I want organic feed. The difference is that the stuff it's made out of will have been grown without pesticides or herbicides or chemical fertilizers, which means that it's just a whole lot better, cleaner feedstocks. In other words, typically soy and corn. You know, and the other thing is that organic means that they can't use GMO soy and corn. If you don't know about GMOs, talk to me later. It's a horror story, what they've done with genetically modified organisms, what they've done to corn. It's a disaster. It's an absolute criminal disaster. While I'm talking about equipment, we'll look at my decoy eggs. When you have new hens that have never laid before, they don't know where to put eggs. So you've got nesting boxes there, but they may not know what that is unless there's another older hen around to kind of set the example. But when you've got new hens, you can put decoy eggs, which you don't have to use plastic eggs, or you can use those colored Easter egg ones that come with, you know, at Easter time. They don't know that a purple egg isn't an egg. But you can also just hard boil one of your eggs, put a mark on it, like with a marker, so you know that it's a hard boiled egg, and leave it in there for 5 or 6 weeks and then just throw it out. They'll put eggs where they find eggs. So if you put a decoy egg in the nesting boxes, you'll teach the chickens that's where eggs go. It really works, because otherwise the little idiots they'll be going along and they'll just squat down and drop an egg. Because at first they don't really know what's going on, but then they'll get in a habit of laying them on the floor. And it's really nice if they'll get in the habit of laying them in the box. So we always use some decoy eggs to train the girls. How are we doing for time? Total? Okay, so we're basically at the point where we might just go ahead and do question and answer. I'm going to take a quick look at my notes, make sure there isn't anything that I want to say. Yeah, I'm going to run over some quick stuff. There are standard breeds, they're called, which are the breeds that have kind of been developed over the years. Barred Rocks, Leghorns, you know, the Rhode Island Reds, New Hampshire Reds, the Wyandottes, various breeds. Those are the ones you want to use for laying hens. If you start getting into exotic breeds, you're not going to get as many eggs. Good egg layers lay, on average, 2 eggs every 3 days. Now that's over an annualized average, okay? And they'll only do it for the first couple years. After 2 years, a chicken's egg production falls way off. In commercial production, the grocery store eggs, they work those girls hard for 8 months, and then they send them off to be made into pet food or soup. Because they lose the profitability of feeding that chicken a lot of feed but not getting a lot of eggs, because it does decline over time. We find that about 2 years, chickens are not producing well enough to justify keeping them. Personally, we have them processed and we stew them because they are good, perfectly good meat. You don't want to bake them or fry them because they're tough. They've got a lot of muscle. But we crock pot them and it stews up really nicely. It's actually better tasting than grocery store chicken. But so figure a couple years. Some folks have been told that you have to have a rooster in the coop in order to stimulate chickens to lay eggs. It's not true at all. Chickens will lay eggs because they're chickens. If there's no rooster, they are not fertile eggs. They would never hatch even if you incubated them. Also, a lot of times in a small flock, a rooster is a problem because he'll harass the chickens he's horny and he'll bother them. And it's stressful to them and it can reduce their productivity. So a rooster can be a liability. They're not necessary. I mentioned pecking order. That's just another issue you have to get into. Something you'll find with eggs occasionally that you don't see in grocery store eggs is that you're going to find spots and specks like on the yolk. Grocery store eggs are run through optical scanners that shine a bright light through them, and if there is any contamination in or on the egg, those eggs are kicked out and used to make other stuff. Egg product, like bakeries go through huge amounts of eggs. So they can buy that stuff that doesn't go into the carton for you. So grocery store egg people are used to never seeing specks on the yolks. When you raise your own eggs, you're going to see specks on the yolks because there are various odd little blobs of protein and pigment that make their way onto the yolk or into the egg. The other thing you'll occasionally see is a little speck of blood, sometimes a bunch of blood, which it's a little gross, but it just happens. That is not an indication of an embryo. Embryos don't develop blood until after a couple weeks of incubation. A blood spot in an egg is an indication that the chicken had a ruptured capillary in her uterus during egg production. It's perfectly normal. There's no problem with it. You can, if it bothers you, fish it out of there. If it doesn't bother you, you cook a lot of blood whenever you fry meat or cook any kind of meat anyway. So, but people kind of have to be warned. They're not used to seeing specks in their eggs. Also, the shells will be really odd. We didn't bring any, but you'll get eggs that are really funky shaped, really long, skinny, or that the shell is ripply. Occasionally you'll get an egg that is really thin because they're not getting enough calcium. I actually had one time where she laid the egg without a shell on it. It was just the membrane. Had all the intact, it was totally intact, but it was a little blob. It was weird, kind of creepy. I mentioned about keeping the smell down by keeping a good bedding of litter in there, keep it so it's dry. If there's so many chickens in there and it's not drying, either increase your ventilation or just change the litter more often so that they're not keeping it too moist. Or make sure your water isn't sitting crooked and leaking or somehow getting water into the litter, because you do want their bedding in the coop to stay pretty darn dry. And it should in our climate. It should just stay very dry. It's not hard to keep it dry. Chickens are quiet. They don't make a lot of noise unless they've laid an egg, and then they squawk up a royal storm. I mean, they really cackle and bagawk, bagawk, you know, they really go after it. We haven't figured out, because we don't speak chicken, we don't know whether they're like, you know, strutting in pride or saying, that hurt, that hurt. Because, you know, for a chicken to lay an egg is sort of proportionally akin to one of us passing a cantaloupe. So I suspect there may be some pain involved in that process, but they do make a lot of noise, but it only happens during the day. During the night, they go to bed. They're very, very quiet. So they're not a threat to your neighbors as far as noise goes. Da-dum. I think I'm done. Let's talk questions.
Did you mention, because we got here a little bit late, did you mention whether you should have the coop in the sun or in the shade?
Well, it's okay to have the coop in the sun, but it needs to be such that it's ventilated well and does not become an oven, you know.
Does that help in the winter? So that
Actually, it does, yes. I like to see people build coops utilizing glass on the south face, especially for the winter months. Go to the resource stores. They're the places that recycle building materials, like on North College. You can buy wonderful big chunks of glass, old sliding doors. Man, I've seen some really creative coops that had beautiful passive solar designs utilizing these, what they call repurposed building materials. It's a good way to go. Yeah, I like the idea of that.
As far as the floor of the coop, when you're talking about your litter, are you saying to just have no floor, no wood on the floor, like plywood, and just build up litter onto the earth? Or are you saying to put a plywood floor?
Either way, did everybody hear the question, more or less? If the coop is on the earth, then put it on the earth. But of course, you're going to have some kind of foundation to prevent tunneling, and that's fine. If it's a built-up coop, some of them are up on stilts, which is kind of cool because the chickens can go underneath it. It's a nice shady spot under, because then the underneath the coop becomes part of their yard. Then a plywood bottom. Maybe if you can, put a layer of linoleum on it, but build the coop so there's a very deep basin, and then you put all of that on top of that. And that provides a wonderful insulating layer for the wintertime so that the floor isn't cold. Does that make sense?
Once you have their coops and everything done, what does it cost if you have maybe 6 chickens?
She's asking, what does it cost to have 6 chickens? That's a good question. Once you've built your facilities, if, let's say for instance, you came and bought some of our prime, carefully raised hens that we raised till laying age, which is about 25 weeks, something like that. We sell them for $25 a piece when they've reached laying age, okay? Because we've raised them for 6 months now. Yeah, it's about 25 weeks. So if you were to do that, and then chickens will typically eat about 2.5 pounds of feed per week per bird, okay? Then you have miscellaneous expenses, like you're going to have some hen scratch, because it's good to throw some out for them. It's good to get them to turn their litter. It's good to put in the yard so they have something to look for. It's a great way to end their day. They love a treat of some hen scratch tossed around the yard in the last hour of the day. So you'll have, let's say you did that. You bought 6 birds. You're going to pay about $150 for feed at current prices for a year. Let's say you spend another $50. That's about an annual total of $350 per year. Okay? Out of those birds in their first year, you'll easily get 250 eggs. Okay? If you were to be able to sell those eggs for Whole Foods prices, because these are better than Whole Foods eggs, remember, at $4.50 a dozen, that's a $560 value in eggs. So it really is economical to keep chickens. And that was assuming you fed nothing but commercial feed. Now, if you can supplement with foraging and scraps and garden wastes, You'll cut your commercial feed expense a little bit and you'll actually gain some back there. Then, in the second year, because your production's going to drop some, let's say you only get 200 eggs per year, you're still going to produce about $450 worth of eggs that second year at a cost of about $200 a bird as far as maintenance expense goes. So it really is economical. Your hard cost per egg runs about $2 a dozen. And considering that you're getting eggs that are worth $10 a dozen, really, you know what? Boulder Farmers Market, has anybody been there? Have you priced organic eggs at the Boulder's Farmer Market? $11 a dozen.
Hey, so they're not selling many then, are they?
Actually, they sell out.
Really? That's insane.
That's certified organic. Yeah, certified, free range, top notch. As good as you can get them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be top notch. But you can produce $6 a dozen eggs very easily. Ma'am.
One hen that's decided to sit in the nest all day.
She's broody.
I know, but how do I stop that?
You want my answer? Stew her.
Will she ever stop?
Usually broody hen, no, they'll never stop necessarily, and a broody hen is usually one that's not laying herself.
Right.
So she's non-productive. If nothing else, do you have a rooster? Oh, that's too bad. I was going to say, if I had a broody hen and I had fertile eggs, I'd let her hatch a clutch. I'd love to have some indigenous chicks. But we'll do that down the road. I don't currently do that just because of cost. My wife and I live on a very tight budget. We really can't have things just for fun. We have to really watch our pennies. So we're careful about what is productive, what's paying us back, what's costing us money that we can't afford. So, oh, you could do that. Yeah. But sometimes broody hens will sit on eggs. By the way, broody is the term for a hen who has decided to sit in the nest all day, meaning she wants to hatch eggs, okay? I'll be right with you. Little Banty hens tend to go broody more than big standard breeds, but we've known of cases where a hen went broody and she'd sit on the eggs for like 18 or 19 days and then abandon them, right short of hatching because they hatch in 21 days. So you can take the chance, but sometimes they won't follow through and they'll get sick of it. But I don't know how to break her of it. We don't keep hens past 2 years because we can't afford to have hens that aren't productive. So I don't currently have that problem. Not much of an answer, sorry. Yes?
Is there a particular time in the year when it's better to start with your group or to just...
No, not really. Other than that baby chicks, if you're going to start raising babies, which we didn't talk about, that's another matter. If you're going to raise babies, it's a lot easier in the warm months than in the cold. That's one thing about it. Oh, by the way, the Rocky Mountain Sustainable Living Association, working with us, provides a very complete 4-hour backyard or chicken course. And I think the next one's scheduled for late October. You can check their website if you're interested in doing it. It's like $40 for the course. We really go into detail on a lot of different stuff. We can cover stuff in depth and really... I tried to get it all, kind of hammer out all the basics here today for everybody so we could get all the important stuff covered. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, do you think it's better to start off with baby chicks or hens that have matured?
If you're not experienced with them, it's probably best to start with matured hens simply because baby chicks have a whole different set of disciplines that are required for their care and management. It takes other equipment, takes sometimes special facilities, depending on what your situation is. So for most folks, it's easier to start with some hens, but you can do it. And there's no reason why you can't. Just, get some chicks and grow up with them. It is fun to grow up with chicks and know them from the time they're babies, because then they really imprint on you and they know you well. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I got an urban question.
Yes.
You said you send them away and process them. How do you do that?
Well, there are professional slaughterhouse type facilities that do that around here. We coordinate with folks who have hens they need butchered, and we do group deals where people bring all the chickens on a specified day because they only do them on a specific schedule. So if we've determined there's going to be a hen processing day on a certain day, we'll alert everybody who is interested. We get them all together, we take them in, get them back, you pick them up. So we help coordinate to make that happen. But it is doable, yes.
Can their own eggshells be a source of their calcium?
That's a very good question. Yes, their own eggshells can be a source of calcium. It's a good thing to recycle it back through them, but it's very important that they not know they're eating eggshell. Because if you teach a chicken that they can eat eggshell, they'll eat their eggs in the nest. And if you get a chicken that learns to eat eggs, you got a major problem, because she'll eat eggs in the nests, and that leaves a goopy mess because they always break it open and then there's goo. And it can teach the other chickens, because they do like what's in the eggs. They love eating their own eggs. So you have to be really careful to prevent them from learning to eat eggs. What we do is when we crack eggs in the kitchen, they go in a bowl where they dry thoroughly, then we put them in a bucket. We pile them up. When we get enough of them, we run them through the food processor to grind them to little tiny pieces. And then we mix those into various kinds of feed mash mixes, or we'll put it in along with the oyster shell. We work with a local dairy. We get raw milk because I don't want industrial milk. It's nasty. And that dairy often has wasted milk that has soured or if for some reason can't be used. We like to get that milk and feed it to the chickens. It's really good for them. They like milk, they like cheese. Soured milk, clabbered milk, it's all good for them. So that's another thing you can feed them out of if you have any waste. We mix those eggshells in with that milk so that they can eat that then. I also mix in kelp meal and some other yeast supplements as well, because I like to give the chickens a bunch of stuff to really help their physiology. But does that answer your question? Yeah, absolutely. It's a good thing to do.
So what if for some reason you don't want to process your chickens, but they're no longer producing? They're like an old folks?
Well, we can help you dispose of them. We know of people who like to have older hens. Actually, some ethnic people will take them, and sometimes they're rather underserved families that it's doing them a favor to let them have them. The other is just right here, the Raptor Center. It's a little bit morbid, but the Raptor Center uses live chickens to retrain those birds they're rehabilitating to hunt. And they need live prey to teach those birds to hunt. You've got a condor or whatever it is they're working with, some kind of a hawk. So the Raptor Center is an option. They really appreciate getting live birds. Like I said, it's morbid, but...
Just a suggestion, there's a really good website, backyardchickens.com.
Right.
That has all this information, plus more, and there's a forum, so it's a really good.
Everybody hear that? She says there's a website called backyardchickens.com. Wonderful source of information. Lots of connections and links, and yeah, it really is a good resource. Lots of good info. That's a good thing to know. Yes, ma'am?
How soon do you have to refrigerate the eggs? And then also, if you have them in the backyard, do you have to clip their wings?
The only reason to clip their wings is if they've got fences that they will fly over and endanger themselves. Generally, if they have enough open space, they won't violate a fence. The reason they'll violate a fence is because there's stuff over there they want that they're not getting here. And leghorns particularly are bad about going over there to get it. You can clip their flight feathers to prevent them from getting over the fence, but I've never done it. I've never needed to, but then I have open space. Yes, you can do it. As far as refrigerating eggs, actually refrigerating eggs forces their deterioration. It's good to keep them cool, but refrigerators dehydrate things because it's extremely dry in there. Now, one good thing you can do is take a dozen eggs, put a date on it, put it in the fridge for 3 weeks, and save those for hard boiling, because if you know how when you try to take the shell off a hard-boiled egg and it peels the whites? That's an egg that's too fresh. If you give them a little time, let them age, what the aging does is it lets some of the moisture escape through the shell because they eventually dry out. Eggs don't necessarily rot inside, they dry out inside. They don't get rancid for a long time, they just lose quality, they deteriorate. So aged eggs, 2, 3, 4 weeks old, they hard boil and peel beautifully, much better than a fresh egg.
I've read that you can store them like just on a shelf if you put like Vaseline coating around them, or what do you know about that?
Well, I've never tried it. What she said is that she's heard that you can store eggs by coating them with Vaseline. In theory, that's correct. The reason eggs go bad is because the moisture inside of them escapes out of them. They dehydrate. If you can lock the moisture in, and there have been a lot of methods used over the centuries for trying to store eggs. People would root cellar them by putting them in various weird compounds or greasing them. I'm aware that the U.S. Navy, the way they do for their carriers, because they take huge shipments of eggs on, because a battle carrier will go out for months at a time, they actually embed them in wax and then refrigerate them. Well, no, it's not cosmoline. That's what those Jeep engines come in.
Yeah, they put the whole Jeep in there.
They do,
The
yeah.
whole daggum thing.
Yeah, but that's a petroleum grease. No, they use wax. They use like paraffin wax or beeswax.
That'd be good, yeah.
You get mice droppings in your chicken feed. Should you throw it away, or can you give it to the chickens and they'll pick around it?
Well, yeah, they'll pick around it. What I typically do, she asked if you get mice droppings in your feed, should you throw it away or let the chickens differentiate it? I take feed that got contaminated that way, and it all gets fed on the ground in the yard. So that the mouse poop is on the dirt and the feed is on the dirt and the girls pick the one they want. And then the mouse poop ends up back in the soil where it belongs. That's what I do with any contaminated feed, yeah. I don't put it in the feeder because I really don't want mouse droppings in the feeder, but I do feed it onto the ground that way. Even if it's pellets, it's a kind of a loss, but it's a good way for the chickens to salvage the feed out of the other stuff. Yes, ma'am?
Is there any bugs that chickens will not want to eat?
Yeah, stink bugs. They won't eat stink bugs. I've found that pretty consistently. Stink bugs are these big black beetles that when you disturb them, they point their rear end at you and they make a nasty smell. And you'll see chickens, they'll get near it and then they'll shake their head. In fact, anything they don't like the smell of, they shake their head at it. And I think it's maybe because they're like cleansing their sinuses or something. But it's real funny. You can tell when they don't like something because they'll get close to it and then they'll shake their head. But that's pretty much the only bug that I found that consistently they won't eat. I watched one swallow half a crawdad whole a couple days ago. That was pretty amazing. Came out of the irrigation ditch, but yeah, they like stuff. Yes, ma'am?
One more, guineas in gardens?
Guineas in gardens are fine, but they may damage your produce. You know. Well, guineas are they're particularly good with bugs, but they will peck at other things. So there is the risk of them damaging produce. So if you can control what you're putting them in and keep them, like I've wanted to put guineas on my squash when I had squash bug infestations, and I'd have sacrificed some of the plant. I tried using the turkeys, but turkeys are so stupid, you guys. They're phenomenally stupid, and they'll be standing in a puddle of bugs, and they'll peck at 2 or 3 of them, and then they just get distracted and wander off. But if a hopper goes by, they'll chase it right into the street. Anything else on that? No? Okay. Any other? She's talking about guinea hens. They're a particular kind of fowl, guinea fowl. Little squawky monsters.
What about meat producers? Can you mix meat and layers?
You can, but you know what? Those fast-growing meat birds are gluttons, like you'll never even believe. And they'll eat all available food. In fact, they'll park their little fat butt right next to the feeder and do nothing but eat all day long. Really, they're growing so fast that they have this voracious need for feed. You can do it, yes, you can, but they're going to tend to abuse the feed.
So is there a breed that's maybe in between a meat and a layer that you can actually have?
Actually,
tasting meat?
most of the,
Do it?
well, the problem is that anything that takes more than a few weeks to grow is going to be tough because they're going to develop muscle tissue. Exercise. We are spoiled. Those pasty, fluffy, tender chickens that we get, they raise those in the dark so that they don't even ever move around. They're parked under a waterer, what's called a nipple waterer, where they just have to look up and tickle this little thing and it gives them water, and there's a feed pan running in front of them. And they put them in these huge barns where they're just full of them, and they don't even move. So I'm going to come back to that, but I want to get the question. It's over. They're not showing it. I looked on their list. It seems to be gone. Food Inc. It was a wonderful movie. Yeah.
It talks about all of that. And
Yeah.
The GMO and
What Monsanto is up to,
the corporate.
and you meet my hero, guy named Joel Salatin out in Virginia. Cool guy.
But it shows you like what they do to the chickens.
Yeah.
To
It.
make them mass produce.
Yeah.
And how bad it is for you.
It just, the chicken, we've gotten so used to extremely soft chicken meat. So if you raise anything that's a larger bodied bird that'll give you a decent meat, it probably won't have the white meat content. You can get medium and slow growing broilers, and they do work out okay, but they also tend to do that whole thing where they'll die of a heart attack because they get too big, or they get crippled because they can't carry their own weight, that kind of thing. That's something a lot of us are working on. I follow some websites that are kind of working on that with medium growing broilers and some of the heritage breeds, and trying to find that compromise between these horrible little industrial freaks of nature versus a bird that knows how to forage, because even the meat birds don't forage well. They're really odd behavior-wise, but they eat a lot of feed, and you kind of need to feed them a higher protein feed than you would a laying hen. And you don't want them to get the calcium that's in layer feed, because that's really a strain on them. Yes, ma'am.
How do free-range chickens coexist with cats and dogs and like household pets? Do you find that there's problems specifically with dogs?
As far as household pets go, cats are generally not a problem at all, because the cats will they're real curious, and they'll like skulk up on the chicken and then maybe kind of pounce. And when the chicken goes ballistic, and it freaks the cat out. And cats quickly learn that chickens are, kind of like psychotic, and leave them alone. And it's good to have your cats get in and out of the coop, because it can help with those mouse issues. My cats hunt out there regularly, and that's a good thing. Dogs just have to be trained to leave chickens alone. If you've got a pet that is not trained, it'll kill your chickens. But they also can be trained not to. Some of the methods are a little odd, and some people might find it offensive, but I know it's effective. Lots of farm folks out there where we are, if their dog kills a chicken, they tie the chicken around the dog's neck for a week or two. And that cures the dog. They will never harass a chicken again. So it can be done. And I've known a lot of my wife's little dog, she gets a big kick out of run up after the chickens, chase them. She thinks she's a big chicken slayer. Of course, she's a little poodle that tries to chase deer too. But, and of course, when the chickens go ballistic, it kind of freaks her out, and she backs off, But it can be done. People do cohabit their chickens with their pets. You just have to, do what you do with any animal and kind of train them around it. Some dogs can't seem to get over wanting to eat a chicken, though. That thing's just walking lunch, really. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of back to what the mom was asking about the guineas, but if you had a couple of rows, in your vegetable garden, if you fenced it off so that they would just stay in between the rows,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that you're not supposed to do that because the manure they're pooping out is too fresh, too close to the vegetables. Is that correct?
I don't like to put chickens in the garden except at the end of a production cycle, so that the wastes go back into the soil in advance of having food. Yes, it is wise to avoid manure in contact with food crops. Yeah, it really is.
So the organic chicken feed, is it gonna be corn then without that hasn't been genetically
It has to be non-GMO corn in order to be certified organic. But as we all know, all yellow corn in the United States is infected with the GMO genes.
My understanding is it's like 57% of our crop now is the genetically changed.
Yeah, they're using a lot of it, yes. Yeah, the stories around that are just horrific too. Yeah, but it'll be better. And if we can support the organic, it'll grow the industry, it'll support the farmers that are doing it, And that's all a good thing. Oh. Yeah, but the turkeys will eat all their food. They will. And it's not the right food for raising turkeys. Turkeys need higher protein feed than a chicken. But they can cohabit. It's just the feed issue gets dicey. Yeah, that's my big problem with it. About what? Ducks are fine too, but again, ducks like to have some water, and they don't need the feed the chickens are eating. Again, it's too high calcium. But you can do it. They can share yard space, certainly. Because your chicken feeder and water are in the coop, and if the ducks don't particularly have access to the coop, just in the yard. But you could do it, you could. It's just a matter of trying to keep everything working well.
So it isn't. So would it be a good thing to have? Would it be a problem to have the ducks live in the same coop as the chickens?
You can do it. People do it. It's just you may have some conflicts, and the fact that they sort of require different feed, although, you know, they'll get along. It can be done. It just creates some minor problems. Everybody doing their evaluations? Yes, ma'am?
Is there any way to scare off predators?
I don't really know of any. The best thing I know is just provide protection. You know, there are a lot of tricks that people have tried and come up with, but they all require work and trouble and reapplication, and your best bet is just to make sure that they're well protected.